So when I get questions from the community, I'm probably going to answer with a question back. So that's kind of what these journal prompts are based on. So today's Journal with Me session is all when the old ways stop working. And we're going to do that together. I'm going to give just a brief little lunch and learn session, and then we'll journal for about 10 to 15 minutes together. So there is a moment that happens quietly. It's not loud and it's not dramatic, and it's often not even noticed until it becomes hindsight. When when hindsight becomes insight, right? When it starts becoming part of your knowing. So in this totally not dramatic way of being, you can start to feel something building, but you're not entirely sure what it is. Like, how many of you have had one of those days where you're like, everything is wrong, but actually nothing is wrong because I can't put my finger on it, but it's just, like, you know what I mean? Where something has stacked up, but at the same time, not any one part of it, not any one thing that you can name is actually a big enough issue or problem to quantify how you're feeling, like that just overwhelm that you're into. So feel free to throw a heart in the chat or react in any way that you choose. Let me know how you're feeling and what you're thinking and what you're going through. So this feeling that's building when you have that overwhelm, that's just like the whole feelings wheel, like not even just one section of it, you're just like all of it. When you have all of it, that is just a clue. That's information into when the old ways stop working. Have you ever heard the saying, I think it's, if it's hysterical, it's historical. Not all of us are into like hysterics. It's not how we react, right? It's not this big like, ah! Like not all of us react in that way. Some of us, when we are screaming, we are stoic and we appear calm and we appear super hyper independent and just whatever about it. But if it feels hysterical, it feels like overwhelm, it feels like the whole wheel, it feels like you need more independence, more time alone than you can even fathom, like you just want everything to go away, whether that's loud or shutting down, that's an indicator of when the old ways stop working or when it's historical, right? So we talk a lot about the past, and I'm sure that if you've been in many of our BMO journaling events, that you might even be like, I've done this work, I've gone to the past, but every time we do it, every time we come to different storylines, especially actually when you get really annoyed with yourself and really annoyed with it, and you're just like, why am I here now doing this again? I can tell you there are two distinct times in my BMO journaling history where I was in that like, why am I answering this again? Why is this coming up for me again? Why is this still a story for me? And in that just anger and refusal, but doing it anyway, I actually was able to unlock something that I had never even thought that I would unlock. Like I had the breakthrough because I allowed myself not only to do it again and not only to revisit again, but to continue to search for things that I hadn't seen before. But I also allowed myself to be annoyed with it and to be angry about it. I think that's part of the magic of the healing journey is getting angry with the right things, getting angry that things are still repeating rather than getting angry at the people in your life and pushing other people away and choosing in that sense to continue repeating them, right? So the way that you used to cope, the way you used to get through, the way you used to keep things together, it just does not land the same anymore sometimes. Even if you are healing, even if you're in that journey and in that arc, sometimes it's just time to go deeper, to do things differently. And that's one of the magical things about the BMO practice is that it's going to arrive with you at every level. It's going to arrive on the surface and it's going to arrive when you go deep. And it's going to arrive in the days that you're just like, I just want to keep it positive. It works in that sense. That's why it's called a practice. It's something that you can literally do every day. It's like going to the gym. Sometimes you're going to be lifting that 40-pound weight. And then the next day you might be like, 10, you know? It works no matter what. The point is to show up. So sometimes you vent, but you still feel it even after venting. I mean, how many people are like that? The more you talk to a friend, the more you stay in it, or the more you're just venting, traditional old school journaling style, the more you're in it and exacerbating it and even giving way to the spiral of it all or the snowball of it all. Or sometimes you push through it. But because you're constantly pushing through over and over and over again, you feel exhausted. All of a sudden, everything is something that you have to push through. You have to push through the healing. You have to push to work today. You have to push through this conversation. And it's not going to work anymore. It might work at some point, but it eventually stops serving you, right? Sometimes you stay quiet, but it builds instead of dissolves. It becomes that moving further and further and further into yourself, more quiet, more independent, more time alone. Sometimes you work harder, but nothing actually settles. You add more to your list. You tell yourself you just need to. You need to this, you need to that, and you just need to survive, and just need to work once or twice till 11 p.m., and you just need to get through this. And when you get through this, it'll all be okay. But how often do you get through a project or a difficult era in life and it's actually just gone? That's not how that works, right? That's why we talk all about so often not need toing yourself. So, and this is the part that can feel absolutely confusing because those ways used to work. Even in part of your healing journey, they worked for you at once, but they were not random and they were not wrong. They were just new ways of survival. Or for some of you, maybe already old ways of survival. And that's okay because they helped you stay safe. They helped you stay connected and stay functioning and stay in control. But there comes a point where survival strategies stop feeling like support and start feeling like pressure. They start taking you into that overwhelm of the full feelings wheel. And then you get to the needs wheel and you're like, all of the above. And I'm going to tell you, if you have those moments, when you're in those halt moments, those hungry, angry, lonely, tired, totally overwhelmed, all the feelings wheel, and you're trying to land on a need, there's two things that you can do there. One, you can just go with the center of everything. So if there were a circle in the center of the needs wheel, it would say connection, self-connection, connection with community, connection with self. And showing up for yourself, seeing, hearing, and knowing yourself is at the center of connection. So you'll notice that seeing, hearing, and knowing are in the three different triads of the needs wheel, and connection technically is at the center of all of it. So if you're in overwhelm, if you're feeling the full thing, if you're needing all of the things, connection is at the center of all of it. The next thing that I would recommend doing when you're in this overwhelm is lately I've been kind of using a hybrid of the BMO Extra 5 Whys practice. And I've been using this 5 Whys practice that you'll find in your BMO guide in the BMO Extra section. I've been using it in feelings and needs lately, depending which one feels like needs to go deeper and more foundational. So, for example, if you're trying to find the root of the need, not just a need that you've been saying a lot, not just something that's the same, not just surface, even though meeting even those surface level needs will make a profound difference in your life. You can kind of 5 whys it in a sense that you name the need, and then you name the need underneath that need, and then you name the need underneath that need, and then underneath that need, and underneath that need. So do it, 5 layers. 5 is somehow just the magical number. And when you get to that 5th layer, when you're in overwhelm, maybe it's something that has to do with halts, like hungry, angry, lonely, tired. But HALT is also just a really clever acronym for Maslow's foundational hierarchy of needs. So if you're in overwhelm, there's probably a sense of lack of safety, emotional or physical safety, mind-body safety. And that safety, on the surface, you might be like, well, I don't feel unsafe. Well, that could be true. but you feel safe? You know what I mean? You may not feel all the way unsafe, but if you don't feel that absolute security and you're in overwhelm, check with those foundational Maslow needs. Check with, your food and your shelter and your water and your breath. Check somatically with how you're feeling in your body. Is there something biochemically happening? Did you not sleep very good for many, many nights in a row? Do you feel like your food and shelter are being challenged because you're in an awkward fight or situation with your significant other, or your children are moving away from home? And yeah, so it may not be as black and white as I'm losing my house, but it can be something that feels the same. It has the same root emotional trigger. So you're not losing your house, but your house and the way that you perceive it and everything that you believe about it is changing. Even in happiness and joy, this can come up. Even if you're just redecorating, changing the color of the wall, it can still uproot some things within us where we're having those historical moments. We're feeling that overwhelm. So that's just a little cheat code, a little extra there. So as we continue to move through this, when there's a point where survival strategies stop feeling like support and start feeling like pressure, like weight, like repetition, like something you cannot quite explain, but you cannot keep doing it that way. You cannot keep surviving in this way. This is where people often turn on themselves instead of turning to themselves. They start to say to themselves, why am I still doing this? Or why can't I just change? Or why can't I just get through this? Or why do I keep repeating this? And sometimes, and tell me if you can relate to this, sometimes that shows up in different ways. Sometimes that shows up in having those usual things that you do for yourself, like going on a morning walk with a friend, and you know that that's part of your cans list and it often serves you, but then you find yourself not confiding in that friend this week because you're shaming and blaming yourself. You're telling yourself, I have the same story and the same problem and the same complaint, and nobody wants to hear this right now. But that right there is historical. That's a belief. That's showing up for someone else's needs. That's self-assigning someone else's emotional state in order to protect your own. You want to build relationships in which somebody can hear you 1,000 times or one time, and either way they hear you. And that's the challenge, because when you really get into those moments where you just don't want to speak and you don't want to say, and I encourage you to say it to yourself and speak it to yourself and come back to your practice, come back to those basics. Just give it a try, give it a chance, start fresh. So in those moments, it's not failure, it's awareness. What if it is the first sign that something in you is ready for a different way? Because when the old ways stop working, it doesn't mean you were lost. It means you're outgrowing what once kept you safe. So even if you're on a healing journey, you'll still be within those layers. You'll still outgrow parts of your healing journey. And this isn't perpetual betterness. This isn't wellness as a to-do list. That's very different, and I am absolutely anti all of that. Like, we're not need toing ourselves through our healing journey at all. We're not need tubing ourselves into spa weekends and getting through this and being better and better and better and empowerment and better and faster. And it's not like that. So you're not lost. You're just outgrowing, and it's okay to outgrow. The discomfort is just not knowing what's next and not knowing what's new, but arriving in your knowing and traveling this path, traveling through your practice, letting it show up for you and build connection and self-trust and safety from inside and moving you in towards security. That's going to be the path forward, because as you enter more and more new places, you're going to have this amazing self-trust and this reliance knowing that you've entered so many new places, and you're going to have less fear and less discomfort and the next sense of newness. So as you go through this, maybe that looks like you cannot keep venting in circles, not because you're ashamed to be sharing the same stories with the same friends, but because you actually want a resolution. You cannot keep staying quiet because your voice is asking to be used. And you cannot keep overworking because your body is asking for protection. You cannot keep managing everyone else's emotions because it is disconnecting you from your own. At some point in our lives, we believe we don't have a choice. We survive by believing it is what it is. And in our healing era of life, we want to understand why it is the way that it is and begin to know it doesn't have to be this way. There's no shame in any of this, in any of the journeys and how you arrive. It is all just a level. It is all just information. So instead of asking, what is wrong with me and why is this happening again? And why are we here again and what now? We can begin to ask, what is no longer working for me in this situation? And what is it pointing toward instead? You can begin to find that foundational feeling, feeling deep, or that foundational need. So this is the space that we're going to write from today, not to fix it, not to force change, but to understand what is ending, what is asking to be seen, and what might be ready to begin. So in these short lunch and learn practices, I don't guide you through the full BMO practice, but you're welcome to join us on March 15th for the next fully guided practice. We spend 2 hours together in learning and in sitting through those emotions and moving through them. And this one's going to be all about growth, and it's already on the website at bmojournal.com/events. So you can sign up for that right now. But today I'm just going to give you a journal prompt. And then as you begin to write, I'm going to ask some deeper and deeper and deeper questions. And if you want to come back to those questions, they will be on this post when I take the recording and post it, and they'll be available to subscribers and members. I almost said mentors. Members indefinitely. They'll be available only live to anyone else, though. So you would have to be here to see it all. So members, you will have full access forever and ever. And so get your journals, get your BMO or a piece of paper, or use your computer. I'm not picky about any of it. What I want for you is to move through these things. How you move through them is completely your choice. So today's journal prompt that we will be using together is, where in my life do I feel like something that used to work no longer does? And as you begin to write that, or if you're trying to figure out what to say, maybe some of these deeper questions will take you there, and go with it. Allow it to change. I want you to flow for these 10 to 15 minutes that we hold together. And then for those of you that are part of the BMO journaling community, continue with your funk method and end with your purposeful positives. Let me know how it goes. Drop in the comments, send me an email. I would love to know. So the other questions, the way I have been coping in this area looks like. What this has been helping me avoid or manage is. The cost of continuing this pattern is. Or if I am honest, what feels different now? Or what I may be ready for instead, even if I do not fully know how yet, is. And the need for underneath the shift is. And if I give myself permission to respond differently, it might look like. So I want you to really think of like the first thing that comes to mind when you're thinking about old ways, the things that are no longer working for you, the journey that you've been on, what it used to look like, what it recently looks like. You don't have to know what's next. All you have to do is talk through what isn't working, and then allow your next step, allow your funk method, those identifying of the feelings and the compassion and the needs, the choices, and really arriving in your knowing, allow that to begin revealing. So you're going to move through those stages, those self-discovery stages in BMO, the feel, the deal, the reveal, and heal. So just free write about what it is that no longer serves you. Where in my life do I feel like something that used to work no longer does? And I'm going to write with you. And we'll take about 10 minutes, so we'll end right around noon Mountain Time. Okay, begin to wrap up your questions, or you can continue on with your funk method, continue on with your purposeful positives. Thank you for joining me here today. When you're done writing, just gently come back into the space. Maybe name some things in the room. Take a deep breath. Arrive in the space, physically, mentally, emotionally. Know that there's nothing that you need to solve or decide right now. There's nothing that you need to do. That if you don't know yet, that is okay. The arrival of knowing is the practice. Know that awareness is the beginning, and the way that you practice is how you become more and more aware. And it's not about becoming perpetually better or perpetually more or needing to do or needing to get through. It is just simply like breath, like waves. It is a practice of newness. It is a practice of space and grace. It is a practice of speaking and keeping. It is one for allowing awareness and allowing yourself to move through, not to get somewhere, but to arrive where you are already. So when the old ways stop working, something new is already forming, and you do not have to rush it. Just show up and stay with it. So thank you for joining me in this practice. Thank you for sitting with me for the last half hour and working through this for the last 15 minutes. It has been amazing to hang out with you today. Continue with your funk method and your purposeful positives, and I hope to see you. We have something going on every single week, all on the calendar now through April 12th. So you can jump over to bemojournal.com/events to make sure that you register for any of it and all of it. There's free lunch and learn, there's journal with me sessions, there's a fully guided writing circles, and there is also our next workshop. All of it is online, and then there's one in-person event in Salt Lake City, Utah, already up there. If you're local to Salt Lake City, I would love to meet you, love to work with you, love to work through things with you. So thank you as always for allowing the change in you to be the change in me, and I will see you next week. Thank you.